Hey everybody, we are on the Living Field show, so we're going to try and get, not no trying here, we are going to get our guest on. So the Living Field, yes, Loren Lockman, an amazing advocate of fruitarian lifestyle. So he will be with us very shortly. He does amazing work in terms of water fasting. So we met the man about 14 years ago. We had some great conversations at a festival called Raw Fest, I do believe. So we're just waiting. So I'm excited. It's going to be, I'm sure, very revealing in many different ways. Man with so much experience has taken many thousands of people on a journey through water fasting. And has been on a really long journey in terms of fruit. So he is going to join. Is he here? Let's have a quick look. He's coming. We'll just accept it. It's taken its bit of time. So my journey in the, let's just say in this living field, is about living, living foods and, energetics. We are not just flesh. We are spiritual, energetic beings, So here we are. Okay, just some trouble joining here at the moment. We're just going to see what we can arrange. So yeah, 18 years on this journey, me. 18 years. Before that, a year before that, 19 years. It's 1 year into Jinshin Jitsu, pronounced Jitsu, spelled Jiu-Jitsu. That really got the energy flowing, in my system. I realized that was such a fundamental part of my journey. I had other experience from about 20 loving step. So, hey.
Hey there.
Hi,
Hi.
Loren, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. How about you?
Good, really well. Can you see me? I can't see you at the moment.
I can see you.
Okay, let's
Yeah,
just see. What can we do here?
I don't know. I'm not sure why it's not working. I see myself and you.
Okay, we're just going to play around a little bit, but see if we can get that on.
Let's maybe we can ask. I see Laura is watching. Laura, can you see both of us? Because that's the important thing, right?
That's it. Yes. So, yeah, Laura or Ashley Gam at 321. Can you see both of us? However, even if we can't, we can carry on.
Yeah,
Let's just see.
absolutely. See both. Good. Ashley says both.
Okay. So,
Perfect.
Lauren, it's so chuffed that you accepted the invite. And it's been, I think it was 14 years ago we first met at Raw Fest. And
Yeah, that's right. And I was there. I spoke there 3 years in a row, and you were there every year, right?
that's
We
it.
spent a lot of time. We spent a lot of time together in your sauna.
Mm. And it and for me, it was such an epic experience, actually meeting someone. I'm not sure how long was you on a fruitarian journey at that time? This is 14 years ago.
Well, at 14 years, it had already been 20 years.
Wow,
It's
wow.
now it's
So,
now more than 34 years I've eaten fruit and simple salads only.
wow, that's amazing. Even when we first met, it blew me away. I mean, I was potentially, with 14 years, I was only 4 or 5 years on my journey. You
Uh-huh.
it's meeting a man who's been that long on the journey, yeah, it, it was very eye-opening. And I remember you said back in your tent, you just had certain small crates of Not sure what you had at the time, but you just had certain fruits, whether it's
Well,
tangerine.
I'll be honest with you. That first year, you're right. The first year I did have a tent, and subsequent years I was busy enough. Because I needed to be making calls with clients throughout the day. Actually, stayed in a hotel and came back and forth because
Mm,
there was no reliable Wi-Fi on site.
yeah, I mean, maybe this was just that one occasion, but it's just so nice to see you
Yeah.
sustaining a fruitarian journey and
Right.
loving the foods we had, and
No,
like you
I listen.
mentioned,
I remember very well, very much enjoying your amazing gourmet raw food as well. So what wasn't only fruit. Um, well, even
yeah,
now.
high involved. And there was one thing I'll just quickly say. There was one thing I mentioned that I had done at that time. So there's a few things that have stuck in my mind over the
Yeah.
years with people who are very well grounded, well rehearsed in what they do. And you were one of them. And there was one thing he said. I remember saying, "Yeah, I had done a 13-day water fast, and I was listening, and all of a sudden, I just get a message to stop." And then he looked at me and it's like, why did you stop? And I'm just about to go. And then before I opened my mouth, oh, okay, I just felt the essence. It was as if I had a download from your spirit, you know? And it's just over the years or the months, the weeks, whatever it was. But, okay. If I have a conclusion now, was I personally believe my intuition was correct in terms of with what I knew at the time and not guided. Personally, I felt that was the correct move. Now,
I
however,
don't disagree.
hmm?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
However, if I had your awareness, your assistance, then as I felt from you, you know, you could have took my hand and took me through the further stages. I look back as well. At that time, I wasn't very well rehearsed on breaking my fast. I look back now, I just put my hand in my head.
Right.
You know,
Right.
because as you know, as it's reiterated, you know, if you break your fast incorrectly, it can be more harm, more detrimental, and just really a waste of time of doing that fast. You know,
Well,
because of the messages that we
that's true. Even fasting incorrectly, which honestly is something almost everybody does.
Mhm.
And this is a difficult part to talk about because I probably come across sounding arrogant. I'm not. It's just that I have vastly more experience than anybody else in the space, by
Mhm.
far. My largest competitor all these years is a place in California called True North. But
Mhm.
the guy that runs it doesn't supervise fasts. He runs a big business, which is not mostly water fasting. Most of his clients come there to eat cooked vegan food
Mhm.
because they can't do that at home. I guess too
Mhm.
hard.
Mhm.
Too hard to make rice and beans at home. So they go there, and then people go there to do juice fasts.
Mhm.
So there's very few people there that are actually water fasting, and he doesn't supervise them. He's training practitioners who are there for 3 months. So the guy actually talking to you every day and looking at your vital signs is someone who's been there for 3 months or less.
Wow. Wow.
I've been fasting people now for more than 30 years, and
Mhm.
I've guided more than 12,000 people through the process. On fast, by the way, averaging 26 days.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes.
their average fast is 11 days, and he's personally the guy that runs the place has done one long fast in his life.
Mhm.
I've done almost 50.
Yes, this is it. I mean, for me, to a level of 17, 18 years on this journey, it's only over the last year I would guide more people. I mean, I have guided people, not many, but not took it on as mm, something to be very well rehearsed in. It's just someone's shared the journey with me. Now I feel like I guide them, obviously, but that's 18 years, you know, and that's, you know, a dozen of intermittent fasting as well. And, you know, I show my experience of you 14 years ago. was that. So when you sort of said people may think you're bragging or in your ego, whatever, so not so. So not so. You know, here we are very potentially in a similar generation. You got double the amount of years that I've been on this. So, you know, on a level, people will be wise to kind of take some notes and take some advice. And then you
Right.
realize why they fell, as you was alluding to, saying how we do the fast incorrectly. People say, yeah, I've done that. And I even question, well, what did you do? Like you questioned, oh, you broke it on 13 days, you know? So there's so much, isn't there? There's so much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an amazing process, and unfortunately, very few people truly understand it, right? And so there's a lot of misinformation. There's probably a fair amount of disinformation because there are, rather significantly large business interests that don't want people to understand how to be healthy. So it's an uphill battle. The American Medical Association, the pharmaceutical industry as a whole, which is more than $1 trillion a year, the last thing they want is for people to be healthy. Healthy people. I listen. I'm now 39 years without a single day sick.
That's,
39 years.
that's amazing.
I buy zero drugs. I'll be 65 in a month. I don't take any supplements. I don't take any medications. The
Yeah.
average American my age takes 5 different medications every day.
Yeah, it's horrific, isn't it? I mean, and also you realize it's in such a mindset, you know, it is a set mindset, you know, how can we break
Yeah.
that mindset? And then, you know, what I realize, what you do repeatedly every day, you know, you're just doing this ritual that's ingrained and it becomes really hard. It can be hard to break. I don't want to reinforce that word, but we can do it. You're a perfect example. The 12,000 people you've taken through would be perfect examples of that. You know, you
Yeah.
at your age, me at my age, there is hope. There is hope on the other side, you know. And and there's never it's never too late. As far as I'm concerned, you know, we chip away slowly, slowly.
Well, when I'm speaking to audiences, Pete, I always tell people, fasting isn't necessarily going to help everyone. If you're sitting here today, if you're listening today, and you're already dead, this isn't going to help you. Okay, if you're not quite dead yet, your body can still cleanse and heal, and we're
Mm-hmm.
going to see amazing things happen by fasting long enough and properly.
And when you say if you're not quite dead yet, what do you mean by that? If you're not quite dead?
Well, I mean, either you're dead or you're not, right? So if you're not there yet, then if you're still
Oh,
alive, right?
yes, yes, yes.
I've so far fasted uh, 2 or 3 people in their 90s, a dozen or more people, 2 dozen people in their 80s, um, hundreds of people in their 70s. I have 3 people right now. Actually, one just finished. 3 people in their 70s fasting with me now. I've got 3 group calls every day.
Mm-hmm.
I work with small groups, so I'm fasting up to 18 people at a time. We're probably going to be initiating a 4th call soon. And right now, until a couple days ago, I had 3 people in their 70s. I've got people in their 60s. I've got people in their 50s, 40s, 30s, and 20s right now. And in a week, I'll be fasting an 11-year-old with his mother.
Wow, beautiful. So, okay, when you mean dead, literally physically not dead. So I play around with that dead word because sometimes we're a
Yeah.
bit like the walking dead, aren't we? So that's
Yes,
I
a
wasn't
lot of
sure.
people are exactly like that.
I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if you meant that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, I mean the point. I'm sorry, Pete. The point is simply that if you're alive, your body is detoxifying every single moment of your life, right? Because our bodies, the 70 trillion cells, are making cellular waste every moment, and the body has to be eliminating the cellular waste. What happens to most people is that their bodies are not capable of keeping up with the level of detoxification necessary to maintain a high level of health. And so what happens to most people is they're born at this level of health and it starts to decline as soon as they're born.
yeah, yeah. What I've witnessed over the many years is this heals this, that heals this, that heals this, and there's so many things that apparently heals, and our body regenerates in so many months and this and that. However,
Right.
not we got all the garbage in the way, like you just mentioned.
No, exactly. Well, I mean, first of all, let me push back just a tiny bit on what you just said. The truth of this is that healing is a biological process. And what that means is that only the body can heal the body. There is nothing that can heal the body except the body. It was in Dublin many years ago. I was giving it was in Belfast. I was giving a full day seminar, and I said to the group of 40 or 50 people, "There's only one thing on this planet that can heal your body." And a hopeful voice from the back of the room said, "You?" I said, "No, it's not me. It's your body. Only your body can heal your body." By the way, Pete, we can only see you now from your mouth up.
Okay.
There we go. There we go.
Apologies.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's better. We want the full splendor.
Thank you.
So only the body heals the body. Supplements don't heal you.
Mhm.
Diets don't heal you. Juices don't heal you. Superfoods don't heal you. Now, let's be clear. I mean, a lot of people heal by going raw, right? And guys, if you don't know Pete's cuisine, are you still preparing much food?
We did an event last year, 2025, and well, what we're doing, we got 6 ebooks out actually. So we are working on online a little bit more and doing some private retreats, resets, as we call them, and private sessions.
That's great. Well, I remember that first year. You may recall this. I came to London to do a series of events, and there was a woman in London who had offered to organize these events for me. So I show up on London on Thursday night. I'm supposed to speak on Friday, all day Saturday. On Thursday or Wednesday, I think it might have been Wednesday, I check into a hotel somewhere in London, and I get a message from her that says, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to do this." And I've traveled to London for events, and she's telling me the day before the first event
Wow.
that there's not going to be any events because she hasn't actually done anything.
Wow.
And so I had heard about the Raw Festival, and I thought, well, I'm already here. I've got nothing to do. I did not plan on camping, so I went out the next morning, bought a tent, bought a sleeping bag, bought a few things, got on a train. And if I remember correctly, that first one was out in near Tunbridge Wells.
Yes, it was, yes.
And so I took a train to Tunbridge Wells and then got a taxi to the site. And when I got there, I thought I'll make myself useful. And so I found the organizers and said, "Hey, tell me what I can do to help you." They were still setting everything up. I got very involved with that. And I wasn't there to speak. I wasn't on their roster. I had actually written to them, and they were busy getting organized and never even got back to me. And so at some point, I think like on the second day, one of the ladies organizing said, "Hey, if you'd like to give a talk, we'll create some space." And you had said to me, I'd love for you to do it in my tent, in your Moroccan dining tent." I remember it was an amazing setup. It was a beautiful experience. The food was incredible. The environment was incredible. And if I remember correctly, I did a talk in there maybe from 4:30 to 6 o'clock or something. And when I was done, people were hungry, and we had a whole tent full of people eating your delicious food.
It was a great event. I remember as well.
Yeah.
There is a question here, but so I'm such in the same ethos as you. But people don't want to hear that the facts. We get so attached to the fact that herbs that only your body can heal, basically. So when we talk about the juices and the liquids, the herbs, etc. Okay, not to negate them from my perspective. It is assisting. However, it's good to not forget it's only our body that can heal. You know, there is
Exactly.
someone has put a message up. Do you believe in other types of fasting, like grape fasting? You know, I'm sure. I mean, I personally, when you take away so much of the nonsense that's got you there in the first place, then
Yeah.
there's a lot of living mono, I would say. You know, will really. It's not really that resolving the problem, but that will, of course, assist you. But you know, you go ahead and you could answer that one.
Right. Well, so first of all, if we look at the textbook definition, I mean, of course, we can call this a chair if we want to, but it's most of us recognize it's a glass, right? The textbook definition of fasting is the complete abstinence from calories and nutrients. So I understand that the point is only grapes or juice fast is only juices, but you want to be clear you're not fasting because you're consuming calories and nutrients, and there's a significant difference. I'm sorry, who asked the question? I don't see the.
It's just gone.
Oh, okay, no worries, no worries. I was just going to address them by name, but um, the difference is that when we're
Yeah,
in an
Ashley.
actual. Ashley, was it Ashley? When we're,
Yeah.
when we're actually fasting, Ashley, what happens is there's a whole cascade of beneficial physiological changes that occur. Now, you've heard of some of them. First of all, we move into ketosis, and we could do that. We could move into ketosis. I mean, you could eat a bucket of lard every day and be in ketosis. I wouldn't recommend that. Okay. If you're consuming only fat, you're going to be in ketosis. And being in, you want to be clear. I mean, because you could eat a bucket of lard every day and be in ketosis. Obviously, being in ketosis alone doesn't mean that our bodies are cleansing or healing as rapidly as possible. It doesn't signify that. Okay. It just means that we're running on ketones instead of glucose. That's all it means. And by the way, there's not a single valid scientific paper or even expert that would suggest that being in ketosis long term is a good idea. It's not. When we're fasting, the level of ketones is 3 to 5 times higher than we're eating a ketogenic diet. And what we do is we get this incredible hit. And again, for my clients over the last 30 plus years, the average fast is 26 days. Now, be clear, no one should ever do that without experienced guidance. Okay, it's dangerous and you're very likely going to harm yourself. You may not realize it, but if you don't do it correctly, you can actually harm yourself. And the reason why is very simple. Fasting, as I'm sure Pete, you will agree, fasting is very powerful. I
Great.
remember you had a, I can't remember if it was a van. I think it was a van that you came to the event in,
Yeah.
because you had your whole sauna in pieces that you would show up with, and all of your cooking, not cooking, food preparation
Yeah.
stuff. So your van is probably powerful too. Is that positive or negative?
Say that again. My van is what?
Is
Um,
powerful. It's powerful.
yes. I
It
mean,
has a lot
okay.
of power. It has a
Yeah.
lot of power.
Yes. Yes, it would. Yes, it
But
provided.
but that's I think you can agree that's neither positive nor negative.
Yeah. Okay.
Power is neutral. It depends on how you apply it. So
Hmm.
fasting is incredibly powerful. If you apply it correctly, the benefits are unbelievable. And I can share, if you'd like, I can share lots of examples. But when you apply it incorrectly, it can be really, really disastrous because
Yeah.
you're applying power in a harmful way. Okay, that's what happens. So um, when
Yes.
we talk about drinking only juices, is this beneficial or only eating only grapes? Yeah. And in fact, Pete, do you remember a documentary? It's probably been 25 or more years now, called Super Size Me.
Yeah, I do. Yes. That was amazing. Yes.
For anyone, there may be some people here too young to remember this, but or maybe from somewhere else. I know we have Laura here from Australia. Super Size Me, not now, but originally back
Hmm.
then, she was in Australia. Super Size Me was a documentary. There was a New Yorker who decided he was going to see what would happen if he ate only McDonald's
Mm.
30 days in a row.
Yes. Yes.
Every meal McDonald's, nothing else. He had to eat everything on the menu. And back then, McDonald's had a campaign where the person at the register was supposed to ask you, let's say you order a hamburger and French fries and a Coke, whatever, shake. They're supposed to say, do you want to supersize that?
Mm.
And if you supersize it, you get a 5 pound hamburger and a a 50-gallon fries and, these enormous meals. And of course, they charge him more for that, right? And then his deal was, the hook was, if they asked him to supersize, he had to say yes. And then he had to eat all the food. So 3 times a day, he's eating McDonald's. And needless to say, he got very, very sick. And it
Yeah.
was interesting because if you recall this, before he started, he went to a doctor, a nutritionist, a, um, a personal trainer, I think. There might have been one other professional, and he wanted their opinions. What do you think? And they all said this basically the same thing. Your cholesterol is going to go up a little bit, your triglycerides are going to go up a little bit, but you'll be fine. No big deal. 2 weeks into this, they're all begging him to stop so he doesn't die.
I remember.
Now, at the end of the 30, he did it. He did 30 days. At the end, he was very ill. His girlfriend was a vegan nutritionist and helped him get back onto a healthy diet and recover. But imagine, at the end of 30 days, he said, okay, I think I've discovered that eating only McDonald's, maybe that's not the healthiest diet. So I'm going to eat McDonald's 2 meals a day, and I'm going to have a large green salad for dinner. My guess is he would have gotten healthier. And it's not because 2 meals of McDonald's plus a salad is a healthy diet. It's because it's healthier than what he'd been doing.
Mhm.
Our amazing bodies in every single moment of our lives are attempting to take our health and vitality to the highest level possible. As soon as we improve anything, we're going to see an improvement, a corresponding improvement in our health. This confuses a lot of people. I remember many years ago, I was on a panel at some big event where I was speaking, and there was me, the fruitarian based raw vegan. There was a macrobiotic person. There was somebody else eating a conventional vegan diet, I think. And the macrobiotic people think they found the holy grail because some people get better when they adopt that diet.
Mhm.
It's 100% cooked. Much of it's cooked for hours and hours.
Mhm. Yeah.
But they get healthier. Why? Because they give up all the processed crap.
That's
In
it.
fact, this is why people get healthier eating a carnivore diet, which is the last thing our bodies are intended for.
Mhm.
Right? I'm fasting a woman right now. She is 72, I believe. She came to me 4 or 5 years ago with late stage breast cancer. Somebody else she actually had begun a fast in France with somebody else supervising. She doesn't speak English. Her son wrote to me about a week into it and said, "We don't trust this person. We don't like this the way this is going. I've heard good things about you. Would you be willing to take over?" And so I took over. She wound up fasting 42 days.
Wow.
And here she is now, several years, 5 years later, not just alive, but thriving. This is her 4th fast with me. She's done fast to try to, stay ahead of it, to keep everything as good as possible. And she's fighting a little bit of an uphill battle because her son has convinced her that she should be eating a carnivore diet.
Mhm.
And I keep trying to explain to him. In fact, right now we're seeing that she completed her 4th fast. This was 26 days, and she has so far, as of our call was just before this. So there's a group call. I've got people in Europe and Israel, and one in the UK, and one in France, and a couple in Israel, etc. And she's now on her 3rd day of her feeding. She's already had 13 meals, and she hasn't had a bowel movement yet. Now, you know as well as I do, when you're eating an optimal raw vegan diet,
Mhm.
your bowel movements are quick, easy, painless, clean, and odor free.
Very
And when
nice.
I say quick,
Mhm.
right, when I say quick, I mean like half a second.
Yeah.
You get on the toilet and it's out, it's gone, it's easy. There's no pushing, there's no strain, there's no forcing. Clean. Like I'll look at the paper and say, did I miss? No, there's nothing there because it's water based. It's gone. It doesn't leave anything, right? Obviously, if you eat a bunch of fats, that's different. But if you're eating optimally, it's super like this. So here she is, still no bowel movements
Wow.
after 13 meals. Why? Because there's hard mass blocking the exit. Why? She's already fasted with me 3 previous times. All that stuff should be gone. She keeps putting it back in every day by eating things that are low in water and fiber. Okay. Now, I don't want to forget the question about the grapes. So let's come back to the grape fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can eat only grapes. there's a couple things to keep in mind. Okay, and if you're eating conventionally and you go to only grapes, you're absolutely going to heal faster than you would have before, because grapes are better. Is there something special about grapes that are healing to you? No. I read Joanna Brandt's book 30 years ago, The Grape Cure Diet. This is the Danish MD who healed her own breast cancer by eating only grapes. Okay. Now, some people heal by adopting a raw vegan diet, right? Pete and I have been together at various festivals where there are hundreds of people there eating or trying to eat a raw vegan. So not all of them were all raw, but a raw vegan diet. And a lot of people have amazing healing stories that they occurred to them just because they changed their diet. Because remember, the body's always trying to heal, right? Grapes have no inherent ability to heal us. They don't. Nothing does. Only the body does. But if eating grapes is less of a burden on the body than what you were doing before, then there'll be faster healing. Absolutely. Here's the issue. Grapes and all other foods do not contain everything we need. So when we're actually fasting, we're in fasting physiology. Our physiological state changes. It's not just the ketosis we talked about or the autophagy, which begins happening about 17 hours in, 16, 17 hours in. Yeah, we can be in ketosis and autophagy even if we're consuming coffee or tea or salt in our water. Are we fasting? We're not. Because if there's anything besides water, the body thinks
Oops, you still there? I lost you
right,
for a second.
roughly a third of your energy goes to your digestive tract. A whole bunch of processes begin expecting food to be showing up. We're no longer in fasting physiology, and the benefits are dramatically diminished as soon as that happens. So there's nothing we can consume besides water that come close to giving us the same benefits. Not even close. Now, again, this triggers people because people say, yeah, but I drank juices, it was amazing for me. Well, sure, because it was less of a burden than what you were doing before. I ate only grapes for a month, and that was, I healed. Sure, because it was less of a burden. But grapes don't contain all the nutrients you need. When we're in fasting physiology, that's not a problem. But if we are eating something, we want to make sure we're getting a variety of different foods. Now, I eat mono fruit meals most of the time when I'm not in your tent, mono fruit meals and simple green salads. Okay, most of my meals are very simple. Here, I currently have oranges and grapefruits and tangerines. It's citrus season still. Apples, bananas. I have some papayas, some mangoes, some lychees. I had a little bit of durian, but I ate it last night. Um, yeah. And then I have lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, avocados. That's all that's in my kitchen. I don't need anything else.
So,
That's what I eat.
which is beautiful. The other thing is, I've been in England. I'm not in England at the moment, but and coming out over the last year, in and out. And so there was something actually today. I made a little comment at my friend from many years ago, an acquaintance who went from more vegan into more the advocating of milk and dairy and meats, etc. Maybe 14 years ago. A few people actually, when I used to live down in Brighton. So, come on, stop it, guys. Anyway, a comment that you cannot, natural interest in natural law in England in a climate like that. It was she alerted to that you cannot be raw. So I did say, well, I've been raw vegan, 18 years in England. However, I'm
Yeah,
not saying it is easy. It seems like more in the tropics and certain people in the tropics. We did go more dehydrated, but still the idea is to keep it under a temperature. You mentioned macrobiotic. Yeah, I met so many people. Can you imagine 17 years doing what I was doing? You would get challenged. Many people would challenge, macrobiotic,
yeah,
whatever different, let's just say, potential addiction we are in. They want to kind of push their corner or their point across to me. So,
exactly.
and ultimately, so I mentioned dehydrating. So to me, yeah, it's not great to sustain that. Fruits is the best in a climate that potentially, because of our emotional connections, that is potentially more damp, they like to say, and how's your spleen? Now, I normally say, well, the last time I checked in there, my spleen is doing fine, thank you.
Yeah.
So in England, yes, it is more trickier, especially if you haven't got the sunlight.
Yeah.
However, 18 years. There's people I know, 24 years, 25 years, and Fruitarian, 8 years. So for you people who say it cannot work in England, it can work. You just have
No,
to,
of
yeah.
course it can. Yeah. In fact, I mean, it's interesting. People say to me all the time, "Well, you're in Costa Rica," and I was for more than 20 years. But actually, I've spent exactly now half of my raw history of 34 years, 17 years, not in Costa Rica. I mean, I guess it was about 20 years and 14, 15 years. I don't remember exactly, out of there. I'm in Seattle now, and I've
Hmm.
been in the US now for coming up on 3 years.
Hmm.
Okay. I'm in Seattle. Seattle is cold and damp.
Yeah.
It's cloudy here all the time.
Mm.
I started off outside of Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. was built on a swamp. It's a very humid place. It's damp. But even more, just looking outside of myself, my clients have come for me from 156 countries so far.
Mm.
Okay. I have clients in the UK, throughout the UK, in England, in Scotland, in Ireland, in Wales. I've got clients in every country in Scandinavia, maybe not Greenland, but in Iceland, in Finland, in Sweden, in Norway, in Denmark.
Mhm.
I've got clients eating this way. I've got clients in southern Chile, southern Argentina.
Mm.
It doesn't matter how cold or damp it is, because there's something that most people don't realize. I mean, a lot of people say, well, you need to eat for your climate. I don't disagree with that.
Mhm. And
But
seasonal
here's
is correct, but you know.
here's the twist. We're tropical animals.
Mm.
You're in Brazil right now. Okay, when
Mm.
you're in the UK, I'm guessing if you can, you probably don't go to the UK in January and February. But
I had been for 16 years.
yeah, so, right. But the point is, in the UK in the wintertime, it's cold. I remember I came to the UK to speak. I think it's been 6 or 7 years ago now. I was invited to speak at an event, and it was on April 1st. And I thought, oh, it'll be nice enough in London by then, right? Because I don't really want to be in London in the middle of the winter time. I got there; it was cold that day. It was
Mm.
cold and damp. I felt it for sure
Mm.
because I was coming from Costa Rica. But
Mm.
but here's the thing: I was wearing multiple layers of clothing. We're in buildings with heating systems. We are tropical animals, and we're creating a tropical microclimate at the skin, no
Mm.
matter where we are on the planet, because we can't survive otherwise. So right here in the center of the torso, it needs to be about 95 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 35 degrees Celsius. I mean, yes, of course, you can Wim Hof breathe and go out into the snow in your underpants. But can you live there? No,
Can you sustain it? No.
no,
Well,
you can't. No, you cannot. No,
and
you're gonna die.
this is it. I mean, I got over the last 8 years introduced the ice bath and the heat therapy, which was really amazing. And I do realize religiously I'll be up, me and my partner, 6 a.m. doing the ice bath sauna when we was in England. And I looking back in retrospect, and it does ignite something in us. And with all the sort of toxicity that is around that, we don't even know about them. I mean, there's obvious coming out from the sky, and then you find out all the spraying that goes on a lot of the fruits that we get in the UK. So a constant kind of natural way of detoxing to be able to have some little bit of clarity and still keep a bit of a spirit awake. For me, I rekindled that spirit 18 years ago, and to this day, that is for and foremost that is important. Everything else is after that, and we seem to have forgotten an ancient knowingness of that
Yeah,
is the most important purpose. I wanted to say as well, you must come across so much, have to work with people so much on a psychological level in terms of all the emotional connections to the food. You know,
Yeah.
for me, it was fortunately I had awareness from 27 years ago, different groups learning breath work and astrology and sort of shadow work. So that held me in good stead. And I had Jin Shin Jitsu, which was an art a year before I learned that, to just work on myself. And on a level, it's beautiful when you say the body knows, because that's what Jin Shin Jitsu is about. It's just our hands as jumper cables on certain points, like as if we're doing acupuncture on ourselves. And
Yeah.
really, that's just energy, and it's helping to clear energy. So I had to clear so much emotional stuff, craving after craving. I would do my jinshin, and then I'd be taken into this time, 7, 3, for years, all different types of trauma and shocks that have happened to my system. So, and releasing them. So that was really interesting for me. When people say, how come you sustained it? It's just like, why I gave up. If I was to give up smoking or drinking, we just seem to don't see it's an addiction, and we're very
Right.
used to our addiction.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So anyway, I mean, great fasting, sure, you're going to see some benefits. Juice fasting, sure, absolutely. But nowhere near what happens when people actually water only fast correctly and long enough, because you're in a different physiological state. It's totally different, right? Completely different process.
And obviously really good water. I'm sure I mean, that's another thing.
Yeah,
When I think, years back, I hear people, either they got a kidney infection or whatever they was, and they just drinking loads of water, and they're just drinking loads of bottled water. I'm like, what?
right.
So we have been doing distilled water. Again, in England, whatever the ethos is on that, but as you, I'm sure, would say, the best distilled water you can get is from the fruits. However, where we were in
Right.
England, we
Well,
can't.
actually, it's a really important topic, and I'm glad you brought this up. I actually believe, so Pete, when I got sick, and I don't know how much of my story you'll remember. I told it while you were preparing food for 60 people, so you might not have been paying as much attention to that. It wasn't important, but anyway, I got very sick at 23, and it got much worse with 3 years of medical care. At 26, I woke up and thought, I don't think these guys actually have any clue what they're talking about. All they're giving me toxic substances, medications, which are all poison, and it's not making me healthier. It's suppressing symptoms, but making me less healthy, less
Mm,
vibrant all
mm,
the time. And
mm,
I walked away from medicine, and I have never gone back. I have not seen a doctor in 39 years, with the exception of for trauma. On 3 occasions, I used to be a bit of an adrenaline junkie, but
mhm,
that hasn't been true for 20 minutes or so. Um, and on 3 occasions, I had surgery to reconnect severed arteries. If you sever an artery, you probably want to get that sewn back together.
mhm.
It's a good idea. That's the
Yeah,
only medical treatment I've had now in nearly 40 years, and I'll never go back to a doctor, because if you're sick, all doctors can do is suppress symptoms with toxic substances and make you sicker, or remove an organ rather than addressing the reason that that organ's not functioning properly. Because
yeah.
it's never, well, you got a bad organ. No, we can heal almost anything if we give the body a chance,
It's
right?
beautiful. I was going to
So,
ask, yes, I was going to ask you what actually got you on your journey, but you just basically
right.
explained it there. Yeah.
Well, and so as I started to grapple with, I realized, okay, it's not medicine. Now what? Well, I tried chiropractic, homeopathy, herbs. I tried everything else I knew of, and nothing worked. Then I realized, animals in nature are much healthier than people. I can tell you today. There's more than it's estimated that we've got between 25 and 30 million animal species on the planet. Most of them are insects, by the way. How many of those species are healthier than humans? 100%. Humans are by far the least healthy species on the planet. Number two, dogs. Number three, cats. Numbers 4 through 100 are all the other animals that humans have domesticated, keep in cages in laboratories, use on farms or at zoos, at circuses. I mean, these animals that humans are taking care of are far less healthy
Mm.
than the ones living in nature,
And
without
again,
exception.
yes, and again, it's like sort of spoon fed to believe we are spoon fed to believe what is the correct food to eat, and again, what is the correct best food we can give our animals. So yes, I mean, I 100% agree that the more
Right.
domesticated the animals are
Absolutely.
from us, it's
The
just,
worse off there. And
yeah,
so, what I realized from that was I thought, okay, so the animals in nature, they're they're not using supplements or herbs or homeopathy. What are they doing? And I mean, I am aware that there is some small amount of self-medication that happens in nature where animals will eat something. First of all, cats and dogs will eat grass. It's an emetic. It makes them vomit. So if they've swallowed something that shouldn't be in their system, they'll eat grass. Grass doesn't heal them. It just makes them vomit. And they get rid of something they need to get rid of, right? And they instinctively do that sometimes. But what animals do, if your dog gets sick enough, it will lay down and refuse to eat. Every species instinctively does this. They
yeah,
stop eating because processing food takes more energy than anything on the planet. So I realized that, and that's what I began doing to heal myself. But coming back to the question about water, I started thinking, okay, so the natural way to heal is by fasting. Every species has a natural diet. What would be natural for me if I actually lived in the jungle, in the tropics, not in a building in the jungle, but in the jungle like other species? What would I eat? Right? I don't have a stove. I don't have a refrigerator. What would I eat? Well, more than half the trees make fruit. I'd probably be eating a lot of fruit, right? I'm not going to be chasing squirrels and biting through their jugular vein, drinking all their blood and eating them. Why do I do that when I've got mangoes and papayas and bananas? And I had more than 2,000 fruit trees on my property in Costa Rica. Um, we're obviously we're naturally, our systems are nearly identical to other frugivorous animals, and that's why I've been on a fruit-based diet now for more than 34 years without a day sick. And it's not just not sick, because not sick can mean lots of things. I've got 6 siblings. They all wear glasses, at least to drive or read. My vision's better than 20/20. My hearing was recently rated as being equivalent to the average 23-year-old. At 18, I was a cadet at the U.S. Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. I loved skiing, snow skiing, but I had to wear braces with metal hinges. Today, at nearly 65, I surf and don't need to wear braces on my knees. It's the same action, but my body works better today at 65 than it did at 18.
I mean, that's amazing. And then when I'm sure you're getting some of the younger generation coming in, or if we really look, the younger generation, like actually you at 18, that's going back then. Look at the potential 18-year-olds now with how it's just got more fast food, and I would say food
Yeah.
more contaminated, really.
That's right. I mean, more processed foods, etc. So my realization was, and the question I began asking myself with regard to everything, looking at my choices, how do I support my body in being as healthy as possible? It occurred to me there was one question I needed to ask, and that question was, what would I do if I lived in the tropical jungle? What time would I go to bed? What time would I wake up? How much exercise would I get? How much, all these questions, that's how I got my answers. In other words, what's natural for a human living in its natural habitat, which is tropical jungle? What would I do? Well, what water would I drink if I lived in the jungle? Well, it definitely wouldn't be chlorinated or fluoridated, right? What would it be? I mean, in Costa Rica, there are springs everywhere because it rains all the time. So all this water falls, makes its way down into the ground, and then is comes back up in various places. I bought my site in Costa Rica because there was a spring on site.
Beautiful.
My clients drank spring water, and there's nothing better than that as far as I'm concerned. We can't improve on nature. Every other species on the planet thrives drinking nature's perfect waters, and all the longest lived populations. If you go to the blue zones, I lived in one in Costa Rica. In most blue zone communities, these aren't wealthy people. They don't have distillers on their countertops. They're drinking spring water in most cases.
So
I'm in
if
the U.S. now, and I am drinking. You mentioned bottled water. I'm drinking bottled spring water in a glass bottle.
mm, yeah,
I don't want anything out of plastic if I can avoid it. Sometimes, if I'm at an airport, I can't avoid it, right? But generally speaking, it's going to be spring water from a glass bottle. If
yeah,
I'm not where I can get spring water from a spring, if I can
yeah.
get it from a spring, fantastic.
Yeah, I had many years. We had a spring near us, but then you do hear things if there's lots of farming going on near the spring can get contaminated. So
Yeah,
I did move on to distilled. I mean, for me, on a level, because I was doing lots of salads and fruits, I was getting lots of liquids that way. So I really didn't drink water, to be honest. When I used to distill, it would just be going with the sauces and things like that and the smoothie.
right, right. Okay. Well, I'm glad you weren't just drinking it because
Hmm.
I don't recommend anyone do that.
Right, yeah.
When you distill water, you remove all the naturally occurring minerals.
Hmm.
Now, there's all these ridiculous ideas that, well, those minerals are going to harden your arteries or create, mineral. I mean, on True North's website, there's a picture of the scale inside a distiller and say you don't want this in your body. They serve distilled water. Like, well, unless you're boiling the water in your body, that's not going to happen. The scale is left behind when you boil the water. Okay, if you're boiling water in your problem, you got a bigger problem than the scale. Right? If your body temperature is hot enough to boil water, we have a serious issue here. That's not happening inside the body. We can improve on nature. There's no distilled water. Nature's rain is not distilled water. It's not.
But you know what? I was doing rainwater for a long time, and I would even wake up through the night and let the first half hour rain. I'd make sure that what I've created is totally clean, like a rooftop, a small rooftop, and then
Yeah.
I would gather it and I would measure it, and I would get it down to zero. Same as the distilled water after
Well,
this.
that's interesting because in university studies of rainwater, there's always minerals present, on average three and sometimes more. And the reason rainwater is not distilled, it always contains something, is because when in a distiller, when you boil the water,
Hmm.
steam rises, hits the condensing plate, the collection plate, whatever it's called, the
Yeah.
stainless steel plate. It condenses, it rolls down into the second chamber. Right, that's where the clean water shows up. Now, by the way, distillation doesn't actually remove all toxins. It actually creates some, depending on what was in the water you started with. When you boil it, you're actually potentially creating some toxins. But with uh, with water vapor in the sky, it only precipitates out of the air when it encounters something solid. It could be dust, it could be pollen, it could be minerals, it could be pollutants in the air. And one
Hmm.
of the problems with rainwater, I'm a certified permaculture instructor. When you collect rainwater, which we did at Tanglewood, but we didn't drink it, we used it for other things. If you want to drink it, you have to actually filter it, because clouds of pollutants, we have the atmosphere around the planet, right?
Sure.
So clouds of pollutants don't just dissipate into space, they stay in the atmosphere and they can travel thousands of miles. So you could be in a pristine place in Brazil or my pristine place in Costa Rica, and
Hmm.
you could be drinking rainwater that's fallen through clouds of pollutants that have come from Wuhan
Hmm.
or Los Angeles or some other very polluted city. You don't want to be doing that.
Hmm.
So rain has to be filtered, and it's not distilled water.
Yeah.
Uh, Distilled water. When you distill water, you eliminate the minerals. You create a negative charge, and although they say no, it doesn't. It only takes the positively charged pollutants. If you remember sixth grade science, if you have a magnet with a positive pole, it's going to attract anything with a negative pole.
Hmm. Yeah.
It doesn't decide which ones, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So you put distilled water, which is negatively charged, it's going to attract anything positively charged. This includes sodium, magnesium, calcium, and potassium. Four of our most important electrolytes are positively charged. They're going to be removed by drinking distilled water. Okay. Now, so I wouldn't recommend it. Obviously,
Yeah.
everyone's going to do whatever they want.
I hear that. Yeah, and there is a saying that it pulls from your body. I mean, I still do. I still will be doing a bit of distilled, especially for my in terms of some of my foods, what we have and stuff like that.
Well,
I
again,
do
if you're using it in food, it's not going to be harmful. It's not pulling
personally
anything out
drinking
of your
it. Yes,
body.
I mean, it took
But
the thought of doing. I did actually do a. I think I went 4 or 5 days on distilled, and in retrospect, I would agree this spring alive water that I've experienced over the many years, I would rather do that. However,
yeah,
where I was at the time in England, the spring there, I was a bit skeptical about, shall I say? And
yeah,
but
sure.
definitely wouldn't do the water, the bottled water. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, you're absolutely right to consider the fact again, that not all spring water is going to be safe to drink.
mm,
It would have been, except one species ruined it for all the rest,
mm,
right? Humans have polluted much of the planet. And so it's entirely possible that the groundwater in a particular area is not going to be safe to drink. Now, what we did, I mean, I had 37 acres where Tanglewood was located, right? There wasn't anybody, there wasn't much that could have been like coming downstream to us.
mm,
Um, I suppose, depending on how big that particular uh, body of underground water was, it might be hard to say. But so what we did to ensure that it was okay was we had our water tested regularly. There was a specific protocol the laboratory gave us. I would have normally my groundskeeping crew. We had lots of acreage and beautiful gardens and so forth, trails. They would start working at 6 in the morning. But every other month, we would have somebody show up at 5 in the morning, get the sample of water, and get it down to town to be on a 7 o'clock bus at the bottom of the mountain to send it to the laboratory because they had to test it. They wouldn't test it like if they got it in the afternoon, they couldn't test it until the next day. They wouldn't do it. They had to test it the same day it was collected. So we would put it on the first bus, and we had a special protocol to do this, and we were checking it constantly to make
mm,
sure that it was safe to drink. Now we had amazing results. The water tasted great, or didn't taste. It doesn't have a lot of taste, but that's how it should be. But it had a nice little bit of a flavor to it, given by the minerals that are there, and we saw amazing results with it.
yeah.
I think something, perhaps Pete, even more important, if I may, because you said something which uh, a lot of people have trouble believing, but I can explain why this is true.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been measuring clients' hydration levels now for 23 years. I've measured well over 8,000 clients' level of hydration. Okay, we use a sophisticated bioimpedance device, and that actually gives us a percentage of water in the body. I figured out how to take that information. I mean, I'm looking at this information, on average 25, 30 times a day for over 30 years, well, 23 years with that information. I figured some things out. It's a lot of exposure to data. They say 10,000 hours, you become an expert in anything. I've got way more than 10,000 hours guiding people through this process. Um, Here's what I find. The most dehydrated people on site, first of all, we have to talk about by age. And I'll share something with you I've shared many times before. I probably said this 14 years ago in your tent, but you've eaten corn chips at some point in your life?
I've eaten.
Corn chips.
Yeah, yes, must be crisp. I would say crisp corn. Yes, corn chips.
Right, right. How much water would you guess those crisps have?
Well, that's really interesting. I mean, to me, I would say hardly anything personally.
Well, you'd be absolutely right. The number, as it turns out, is 3%.
Mm,
And if 3% sounds, a lot of people would think it'd be zero. It'd be hard to be zero because it's gonna pick up moisture from the environment. But
yeah.
3% is pretty low if
Mhm.
we consider that white bread on average is 50% water.
Wow. Okay.
3% is pretty low. Okay. When those corn chips come back out of your body, are they as dry as when they went in?
Mm, no. So they're getting the water
You
from
you
somewhere.
you better hope not. You better hope not.
Yeah,
That
you
would be
do have a bit of a problem there.
that would be pretty uncomfortable, right? They go in 3% water, they come out 75% water. Stool is 75% water on average. Some days a little bit less. You know when it's less because it doesn't feel so good. Typically, it's going to be 75% water. The water is coming from your body. Okay. As a result of growing up eating conventionally, you did that. I did that. Almost everybody I know did that wherever they were. We get dehydrated because we're eating things that are lower in water than stool, and it takes water from the body to get rid of them. If you're eating sandwiches with white bread, it's taking water from your body. Okay, they're taking water from your body. Almost everything people eat is less than 75% water. Bananas are 73, 74% water, and they feel more hydrating than most of the things people eat, and they're still taking a little bit of water from the body. Okay, so everyone's dehydrated, and the older one is, and it's not just the food. Imagine that first of all, you're eating the way most people do, salt and pepper and spices and vinegar. And I understand when you're making gourmet food, you're going to season it a little bit. But I don't normally eat these things. For me, those gourmet meals are at events like the festivals, or every once in a while if I'm visiting a city with a restaurant like that. I mean, all those years I lived in the jungle, there wasn't anything. It was very simple fare every single day. Those things, salt takes water out of your cells. Your body wants to protect you from toxic salt, and so it dehydrates you. Okay, spices, herbs, they're all doing the same thing. They're taking water from the body. Coffee, tea, sodas, alcohol are diuretics. They make you pee away liquid. They make you dehydrated. So for most people, the older they are, the more dehydrated they are. The oldest people on campus, we would have 32 to 34 people fasting at the same time at Tanglewood. The most dehydrated people would almost always be the oldest people. But if we looked within an age range, let's say between 25 and 35, the most dehydrated people in that age range, and that's a pretty popular age range for clients. Most of our clients were between 25 and 65. So in that first cohort, they would typically be better than the people in the next group that were older. But the most dehydrated people in that group would be anyone who had a dry fasting practice. Dry fasting makes you extremely dehydrated, which is actually why you think you're healthier. You're not. You think you're healthier because detoxification requires water. We detoxify through 5 primary channels, whether it's the urinary tract, the colon, the skin, the breath, or mucous membranes. Nothing is leaving the body except on water. Water is the universal transport medium. So if we're not taking enough water in, we're not going to be able to detoxify. When we make the body, we take an average, typically already dehydrated person and put them on a fast where there's no water. They're going to become seriously dehydrated, and they stop detoxing. And most of those people never really recover from that. Now, so far, 6 people that I knew, half of them were clients and half of them were people I knew, are dead as a result of dry fasting.
Wow.
In every case, their kidneys shut down. Yeah, because every time we're dehydrated, we're damaging our kidneys. Okay? Yeah, now, here's the crazy part. The second most dehydrated people I've ever measured. This is going to be hard to take. I apologize in advance. The second most dehydrated people, and I've measured a lot of them, are people eating optimally and not drinking water. They all think they're hydrated because they're living on watermelons and mangoes and papayas and bananas, and they're getting in their salads. They're getting lots of water in their food. But here's the problem. If you look at the digestive tract of a carnivore, for instance, a 500-pound tiger, from mouth to anus, is 12 feet long. Now, that tiger is 4 times your size, or close to it, right? Between 3 and 4 times your size, my size, same. Our digestive tract is 2.5 times longer. Okay, I know one of the people who's currently with us right now. That tiger is easily 4 times, probably 5 times her size, and yet her digestive tract is 2.5 times longer. That's 12.5 times longer proportionally. In other words, if we were the size of the tiger, our digestive tract would be 12 times longer than theirs. Okay. Now, why? Well, the reason's very simple. Carnivores and omnivores meant to eat meals with zero fiber, because flesh has zero fiber, have short, smooth, straight digestive tracts. But from the bottom of my stomach, which is about here, it's not way down here. This is the colon down here. Bottom of the stomach is up here to the ileocecal valve in my right groin. You probably can't see that still. That's which is about 12 inches, about 30 centimeters on my relatively long torso. There's 22 feet of small intestine, approximately 22 feet in that 12-inch space. Okay, it's all twists and turns. It's 1/3 the diameter of the large intestine. It's sacculated like a vacuum cleaner hose. None of those things occur in the body of a carnivore and omnivore. When we eat flesh, which I did for nearly 30 years, it's very hard to move it all through the system. Anything that's not high in both water and fiber, right? And this is why, again, dried foods, dehydrated foods should be a relatively small part of your diet, because if you're consuming a lot of things that are dry, your body can't move them through. It's the water that allows it. The fiber interlocks, and then the water is able to move it all through your very long digestive tract.
Just touching on, so that's going to trigger a lot of intermittent dry fasters. I
can imagine.
Have done some dry fasting, and it's really nice hearing it. Doesn't it? I'm aspiring to stay open to truth, and experiment as I have gone along the way.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'm not doing that no more. Why am I doing this, and why am I not doing that? So then, normally my body knows, before my head, or what we can get so easily, like let's try this. And then becomes a fad thing, and then we're used to spell that spell amongst each other. So there's a big thing on intermittent dry fasting, big. So it's really nice hearing what you're saying. I mean, I will digest that, and probably many of all the so-called scientific research on intermittent fasting, and there's been a lot of it, which is interesting. So, why on a level as we would know, on a level as veganism was pushed by certain people, however, it's become very junk vegan food. Now, I could say what you're alerting to on a level is, okay, dry fasting is being pushed in a big way. Potentially, as you were saying, actually it's more detrimental than beneficial. So, what you bring in about the water is really interesting. As a fruitarian, you're basically saying you still need to have lots of water.
Well, let me explain. So let me continue, because I mean it's super important. If people are actually listening and paying attention and taking this in, this could help a lot of people, because there's a lot of people laboring under the misconception, and I understand why. If you grew up in the U.S., you grew up eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. You grew up eating what we call crackers. You guys call cookies or biscuits. I don't know what crackers are. Anyway, chips, we call chips, you call crisps. All these things are very dry. And most of the things we grew up eating. So you couldn't eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich without drinking something. You couldn't get it down. It's not possible, right?
You're breaking up a little bit here.
Okay. Tell me, is it better now?
I can just about hear you, but it's a annoying little fly keep pestering me, but yes.
Oh, that's too bad. Yeah, I see you flickering a bit too. What I was saying was, if you grew up eating conventionally, you had to drink with your meals to get things down. You had to drink, right? You couldn't swallow that peanut butter and jelly sandwich without drinking something. So when we moved from that to eating high water content foods, we think, oh, I don't need to drink, because we did most of our drinking with food, right?
You broke up a little bit, but I'm still with you.
Okay, so here's the issue. And again, this is, some people think this is controversial. It's not. I explained earlier that I have a client who today, just an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, I'm looking at her numbers and I see this is a woman who's in her early 70s. She's fasting with me for the fourth time. She has already. This is her third day eating. She's in France, so I'm in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle. She's already had. By the time we spoke, she'd already had 13 meals over the last 3 days, and yet there had been no bowel movements. You should eliminate 8 to 12 hours after the meal, so she should have already had quite a few bowel movements. 10 at least. Oh, looks like you're frozen. You can hear me? Okay.
I think
So she should have
having
had.
a
Yeah, looks like there's
yeah,
some
going in and out.
Well, we can
Okay.
go on as it seems like it's okay.
I'm wondering whether to. Okay, apparently it's good now.
Okay. So here she is, 13 meals later, no bowel movements. Why? As I said earlier, there's a hard mess. What's that hard mess? That's the remnants of everything she's ever eaten that wasn't high enough in water and fiber that she hadn't moved out before, and some that she's put back in since the last fast, which was over a year ago. So since
Hmm.
then, she's been eating a fiberless diet. Well, unfortunately, she's built up this massive old hard material again. Okay, this is the reason why colon cancer for decades has been the fastest growing form of cancer, because people are increasingly consuming processed foods. In the US, the average person now gets nearly 65% of their calories from ultra processed foods. It's probably not very different in the UK. All right. And so those foods have virtually no fiber. It's impossible for us to move them through the system. This stuff gets stuck in the small intestine. Again, all twists and turns, 1/3 the diameter of the large intestine, and sacculated like a vacuum cleaner hose. This is where the stuff gets stuck. When we eat a high water content diet, that dry, hard material begins to absorb water from our food and drink, and we never get hydrated. It's impossible to get hydrated until we get rid of that stuff. Once we get rid of that stuff, we see hydration go way up. And I've seen this thousands and thousands of times with clients. I'm the most hydrated person we've ever measured. Why? And you can probably see, again, I'll be 65 in just a few weeks. I have, and I just came from a family wedding a few weeks ago. With a lot of family members around my age. Everybody had lots of wrinkles on their faces. I don't. Everyone else was wearing glasses. I'm not. All my sisters are dealing with arthritis. There are four of us in our 60s. Everybody has arthritis, which my mother had terribly, but not me. My body works better today than it did then at 18. Okay. Why? Because I've gotten my body clean and I've eaten a high water content diet, but I still sip water. You've seen me sipping water throughout this interview. Okay.
I had, but others probably had.
Say it again.
Oh, I can't see you, remember? But others have probably have seen you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the others can see me. They can see me. Yeah, for sure. I forgot you can't see me. Oh, but now you're frozen. You're sort of coming in and out. It looks like it might be on
Yeah.
your end. Yeah.
We're breaking up a bit.
Hopefully.
I'm not sure what we could. Yeah.
Well, maybe we just hope it gets better. There's not much we can probably do
Yeah.
about it.
We could stop.
In
Okay.
any case,
So,
yeah.
I mean, that's really amazing. And what you're saying about the water. So, the theory of at least half hour before food or half hour after.
Well, I think 15 minutes before is usually long enough. Water doesn't stay in the stomach very long in most cases, so we can drink water. 15 minutes later, you stop drinking. 15 minutes later, you can eat. After you eat, it depends on what you've eaten and how much of it.
Yeah.
With small amounts of things like melon, 15 minutes might be enough. If you're eating larger meals and you're eating things like bananas and sapotes, you might need more time. Jackfruit and durian, you might need more time than that. And it's okay, if you're eating something that's not super hydrating, like all those very sweet fruits that tend to be lower in water. It's okay to take a little sip if you need to wet your whistle. But you don't want to
Sure.
drink a glass of water while you're digesting food because you're going to dilute your digestion.
Yeah. I mean, someone said they use water to wash down their food, wash it all down. Or I
Well,
remember they said actually they remembered when they did it. I used to. I
exactly.
remember. I've done so many things like yourself, going back in terms of you know all taught by our parents or what by TV or whatever, certain procedures when we look back on it, it's just like, oh my gosh, where did you ever get that theory from, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, it's, again, I want everyone to understand, and this is consistent. People, right now I have, let me think, one, two, I'm trying to think of the group I'm fasting. There's at least 5 or 6 people who are already eating an optimal diet, but are still very dehydrated. Okay. And this is consistent. The only way we get hydrated is we have to get that giant sponge out of the body. And only then is the body going to be able to absorb all the water from whatever we eat and drink. Now, there's one
Yeah.
other related piece I'd like to share. There are people out there who say, I remember once recently I had a comment that's on one of my reels. Someone said, water dehydrates you. And I said, you're absolutely right. In exactly the same way that breathing takes oxygen out of your body and eating food takes nutrients away from you. Of course, those two statements are absurd.
Yes.
Hydration is about how much water is in your body. Water can't dehydrate you. Why do people think it does? Now, it's true that certain types of water aren't going to hydrate you very well because, again, without the naturally occurring minerals in water, the water doesn't cross cell membranes very well, and it's not going to hydrate you very well. But the reason people think water dehydrates them. Let me ask you a question, Pete. Do you use a sponge in the kitchen?
Mm-hmm. Yep, we do.
Okay, so let's say you've been preparing food and your countertop is wet and you're cleaning up. You have a dry sponge sitting there. What's the first thing you do before you wipe up the counter? To dry
What's
the
the first,
counter. First
the
thing you do with that
first thing?
sponge.
With a dry sponge?
Yeah.
And I would to the wet to soak up the wet, yes.
Okay, but before you take that sponge and wipe your
Okay.
counter, isn't there something you have to do first?
You mean give it a rinse? Maybe I'm
It's
not.
not about it's not about rinsing it. It might have been clean when you last used it. Here's the thing. Water is hydrophilic to water. It's attracted to water. Water is hydrophobic to sponge. So the water is not attracted to the sponge, it's attracted to water. When you dampen the sponge a little bit, now it's going to absorb water. Until you dampen the sponge, it doesn't really absorb very much. The same
Yeah.
is true. The same is true when you were traveling on the road and doing your things. I'm just plugging my phone in here. There we go. When you go away for a while, you come home, you can see here. I've got right here. It's out of the shop, but I've got some plants on the counter right behind me. Okay, if I go away for a week, I come back, the soil is going to be dry and hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I can't just dump a bunch of water on it. I actually have to get it damp first before it absorbs much water. Because again, the water is not attracted to the soil, it's attracted to water. So we have to get it a little bit damp first. Well, the same is true with the old material in our small intestines. So when we're eating an optimal diet, we're not activating that giant sponge very much. But when we drink water, now we're dampening that giant sponge. And now it's going to start absorbing water from the body because the body wants to get rid of that stuff and it has to hydrate it to do that.
I'm just
Okay.
gonna. I just have to move this over a bit to get the charge on. So
No
I am
worries.
just getting this on because we're having a bit of a.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I just did the same thing.
So yeah.
Okay, so what
Am I
happens is
am I still in the right position?
you are.
Yes. Great.
You look amazing.
Oh well, thank you very much.
So when we start drinking water and we start rehydrating, activating this giant sponge, it's going to be absorbing more water from the surrounding tissue. It feels like it's dehydrating us, and in a sense it is, but it's not really dehydrating us. It's trying to get the body, it's trying to allow the body to get this old material out of the system, which we have to hydrate to do. So once we get the stuff out of the system, this is no longer an issue. So I always have continued to drink water, even though I've been eating a fruit-based diet now for more than 34 years.
That's the. Go on. Yes.
but I drink much less than I used to.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's beautiful to hear because it's because I just go along through life and work out things for myself because there's so much information, and then you
Yeah,
become aware there's so much misinformation, and then
right.
I could take bits from your ethos, take bits from someone else's ethos in terms of dry fasting. So this has been epic in terms of more of an eye opener for me in terms of the rhetoric that's going on about dry fasting. Would you at all do, for instance, any intermittent fasting? 16 hours, 18 hours with no water as
Oh,
well?
oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
If let me, I'd love to talk about that with you for just a moment.
Yeah,
But
okay.
if you don't mind, I think there's one more important piece on dry fasting before we leave that behind,
Hmm.
if that's okay with you.
Yes, yes,
So,
sure.
so over the years, I've fasted dozens of people who'd had a dry fasting practice. They're always the most dehydrated people in the group every time, at least within their age range. But here's the thing: they come to me, and I've got them drinking a lot of water while
Mm-hmm.
they're because in order to get this old material out, we need more every day. More of the old material is breaking down. Now, it's important that you get the right amount of water for your body because too little you become dehydrated. I had a client in Amsterdam fast with me. It was life changing for him. Did 21 days. A year later, wanted to fast again, but came to me and said, "Listen," he said, I love everything working with you, except I disagree with you about the water. This time, I just want to drink when I feel thirsty. Is that okay?" I said, "No." I said, "If you're not going to take coaching, I can't work with you. I need you to be willing to take coaching." So he fasted on his own. He wound up in the hospital for 4 months with 2% kidney function.
Mm-hmm.
He almost died. 4 months in the hospital. I didn't know about this. He told me a year later. He wrote to me and said, "I'm such an idiot. I wish I'd listened to you. Um, Here's what happened. I want to fast again to heal my kidneys. Are you willing to work with me if I promise to take your coaching?" I said, "Of course, absolutely." So I guided him through his third 21-day fast. And 3 months later, he went and had a scan. They said, "You're back to 100% kidney function." He was able to heal his kidneys. But he put himself in great danger by not drinking enough. If people drink too much water or too fast, they create a serious problem. We have to sip water slowly because there's a limit to how much your kidneys can process. So you've noticed that I'm sipping throughout. I had very little water so far in an hour and a half, but I'm because I'm taking little tiny sips,
Yeah.
only little tiny sips. If we drink faster than that, we just pee it out and we lose electrolytes. So we
Mm-hmm.
have to take the water in slowly, and it becomes a nuisance when fasting. To do this correctly, you're sipping all the time, all day long. Okay, but here's the thing with dry fasting: these people would come to me having had a dry fasting practice, super dehydrated. I'd get them drinking 4 liters, 5 liters, 6 liters of water, whatever their body needed. We're measuring every single day. I'm looking at 30 different metrics with my clients every day to keep them safe and and I guarantee them in writing the best results. They're not going to get the results anywhere else. I know this because people come to me having already fasted with somebody else and not getting the results they wanted. But here's what happens: we get these dry fasters, we start to get their hydration levels back up, and all the symptoms, all the stuff they thought they healed, shows up again. They didn't heal anything. They made their bodies so dehydrated they couldn't detoxify. That's what
Wow.
dry fasting does. Now, by the way, people say, "Well, you've never done it." I have. When all the nonsense started out about all this stuff talking about how powerful it was, I'm like, all right, I'm going to try that. I actually did 3 4-day fasts, no water, 3 times. Nothing happened for me. I was actually okay because I'm the best hydrated person we've ever measured. We've never seen anybody as hydrated as me. We've seen a few people close, but the average person is much more poorly dehydrated, and they dry fast, they're putting themselves in serious danger. And even when they go back to eating perfectly, they've created such a problem they never recover from it. Every time we dry fast, every time
And,
we're
you-
dehydrated.
and you're talking, when we're talking about dry fasting, we're talking probably potentially going into 2, 3, 4 days as opposed to intermittent.
Well,
When
I
I say
mean,
intermittent, 18
yeah,
hours. Something like
I mean, listen, right. Even 18 hours doesn't make any sense.
that. Okay.
My clients wake up more dehydrated than they are at the end of the day after they're drinking. So if you wake up, being dehydrated is hard on your kidneys. Remember, everyone's walking around significantly dehydrated already.
Mhm.
All dry fasting does is make you more dehydrated. Again, people think they're better off because their symptoms go away, because symptoms are evidence the body's cleansing or healing. But we're not helping ourselves by making ourselves more dehydrated. And that's what they're doing. That's all they're doing. They're making themselves more dehydrated. I mean, let me clarify.
Yeah.
Because they're not eating, there are some benefits of fasting that occur. But the detoxification depends on having enough water. There's going to be precious little detoxification happening if they're not drinking anything. Okay? So I think that's really important to understand. Now, the good news is no matter what you've done to yourself, as I said earlier, if you're not dead yet, you can still improve. Maybe not completely. Sometimes you get enough damage, it's hard to recover from. But we can almost always see huge improvements when someone fasts both long enough and properly. Okay? So I just wanted to get that in because it's really important. It's not just a belief about this. I can see when we get these people hydrated, they haven't fixed anything. They were just so dehydrated, their body could not detoxify. Okay? I'm sorry, you had asked me about what?
No, yeah, so it's amazing, isn't it? Because water fasting has been going on for quite a bit, and even I would reiterate, it's just like we talk about Jesus 40 odd days, etc. And I'm like, no, he dry fast. However, and then you get in the breath variant. That's another topic. You know, on a level, it's beautiful hearing what you're saying, and of course, we don't have to take in on the information. Everyone, we tend to cherry pick what we feel is serving us. However, from what you have explained and knowing you well from the past, um, it feels very truthful.
Well,
So
I'll share one more. I'll share one more
okay,
interesting piece with you, Pete.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, Several years ago, I was in Gdansk, Poland, giving a full day seminar. I've had the privilege of speaking all over the world, and 35 countries so far. And I was in Poland giving a full day seminar, and I'm talking about this issue, and a man raised his hand. And I said, yes. And he said, Loren, I'm a large animal veterinarian. He said, first of all, you're absolutely right. Every animal instinctively fasts when it's sick enough or badly enough injured. That's absolutely true. That's what happens in the animal kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
He said, but animals, is my experience he said, I'm a veterinarian for 25 years. My experience is that so no animal ever says, for the next week, I'm not going to eat or drink anything. They're listening to their body. Their body says, stop eating. And because animals, generally speaking, animals in nature aren't eating crisps or biscuits or, all this dry stuff, they're eating the diet that their body was intended for. Now, obviously, if humans are feeding them, that may not be the case. But, back in the old days, when cows lived on farms, on fields of grass, they're eating what they're intended to eat. They're getting plenty of water. So animals in nature are fully hydrated and may not need water because as we detoxify, as the body is converting fat into energy, ketones is what we're running on from fat metabolism, we're making metabolic water. And this happens whether we're dry fasting or water fasting. As we consume fat, the body makes water. Okay. However, because the average person is already severely dehydrated and they've got this giant sponge in there absorbing water, that's never going to be enough water without drinking water. Okay. But the animal who doesn't have a giant sponge because they've only eaten grass their whole life, if they're a cow or sheep or a goat, they don't have biscuits and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and Pop Tarts stuck in there. All they've got is whatever they're meant to eat. It's moved through their system perfectly well. They eat, they poop, right? They don't go 4 days without pooping if they're eating the diet they're meant to. Okay. So because animals are hydrated already because they're eating optimally, they may not need to drink when they fast. But the veterinarian said when they do, they go find water if they can. I mean, some animals, maybe they're so sick or so injured they can't move and they may die. But animals don't ever say, no. I mean, I've seen videos of people, including a friend, an English woman, making these videos where I can barely speak, but this is good for me. I'm like, oh, your body is screaming at you to drink something. Okay, you're not listening.
Yeah, I pointed at me because I was 4 days on my dry fast, and that was me, 4 or 5. I did an 8-day dry fast. It was an experience. I did the year before, this is like 6 years ago, I did a 3-day, experimented a bit like yourself.
Yeah.
And then I did a 3-day dry fast the year after. I knew nothing of dry fasting 7 or 8 years ago. And the first 3 days, I must admit, I know about my kidneys, and it was feeling like someone was hammering. So I stopped. The next year I was doing a little bit of work the first time. The next time I did 3 days dry fasting, and I took it a little bit more easy. Same again, I stopped because it felt like my kidneys were being hammered.
Yeah.
The following year, I did do an 8 day. Now, going back, these weren't pre-planned. It's just something arose. It's like, oh, I'll try this now. All my fasts haven't been pre-planned, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just like something's occurred. It's like a bit like the animal. Something's occurred. Okay, good time to do this. To the data that I knew at the time. So I did an 8-day dry fast, and how I got past the 4 to 5 day, in terms of same lower back kidney pain, I would say came up. I had infrared lamps at the time because I play around with the infrared sauna as well as a fire wood burners sauna. I had that on my kidneys. For me, you may see it something different. That dissipated the pain, and that enabled me to go on, which turned out to be 8 days. Again, I listened to a voice around the 8 days telling me that I needed to stop. So, however, I could meet a 20-day dry faster, and they may say, why? So it's really interesting in terms of different perspective, because
Sure.
I'm not going to challenge your theory, because I think it's a beautiful theory, and I'm going to work with that because I've experienced some of the dry fasting, like you said. You have experimented.
Yeah.
And I experimented, and I'm still on the fence.
Yeah. So I mean, the science is very clear. As I said before, I mean, first of all, if you're not eating or drinking, especially the average person walking around with a giant sponge of toxic stuff stuck in their body, you're just going to become very dehydrated. You felt this; everyone does. This is even why the dry fasting, gurus say, well, you should only dry fast a certain amount of time. Why? Because you're becoming more dehydrated. This is damaging your kidneys. Now, all your organs are going to be affected by dehydration, but your kidneys are super sensitive to it. So the 6 people I knew who died from dry fasting, all of them died because their kidneys shut down. Your kidneys shut down. You can't filter your blood. That's it. Game over.
Did they actually die on a dry fast whilst they were dry fasting?
Some of them died while dry fasting, and some of them died afterward. What happened? I mean, again, you damage your kidneys enough, and most of these people were doing 2 things: they were dry fasting, and they weren't drinking water when they were eating. They weren't drinking water at all. They never
So
drank.
they're all already highly dehydrated. I mean,
Well, I mean, again, most fruitarians and raw vegans will say, no, you're getting plenty of water from your food. But you're not until you clean that giant sponge out. I mean, and here's the thing. So, as I said earlier, Pete, I'm looking at 30 metrics with my clients every day. Every single day, we talk on a Zoom call. We go over their numbers. I work with people remotely now only. I've been doing remotely for 16 years, more than 2,000 remote fasts already. And every day we're looking at these numbers. And the most important one is the last one. It's overall hydration. Okay? Most people are severely dehydrated, and this is everything. Okay, now you and I might need to start thinking at some point in the future, eventually, perhaps potentially later on, maybe getting a little bit older. That could happen, right? Most of the symptoms, right? Most of what we think of as normal symptoms of aging, long-term chronic dehydration. I spoke at a festival a few years ago, and I work most of the time. I'm super dedicated. I love what I do. It feels amazing because I'm helping people all the time. Let me tell you a very quick story. 37 days ago, I got an email from a client, and she said, "Loren, I'm at the hospital with a dear friend of mine. I want him to speak to you. Can you call me, please?" So I called her, and she puts her friend on the phone. He's in the hospital, emergency, heart failure, okay, congestive heart failure. His blood pressure that day was 254 over 130. Okay, if you're not familiar with it, with blood pressure numbers, he had a 268% greater likelihood statistically of heart attack or stroke than the average middle-aged man his age, who mostly die of heart attack and stroke. Not good odds. He was a walking time bomb. Okay, I heard from his next door neighbor a week later, and she said, "I can't believe what's happened," because he looked like he was about to die when this happened. She was there when he was taken to the hospital. In fact, and she wrote to me a week later and said, "I can't believe how good he looks. I want this." And she began fasting with me a few days later as well. She was 75 years old. He's now, this is, so that was on the 10th of February. If I'm not mistaken, it was 37 days ago. We had a conversation. They wanted to keep him there for 4 or 5 days, do various tests and probes and put on drugs. And I said to him, "Look, all they're going to do is suppress symptoms. It's not going to make you healthier." So he decided to leave the hospital. My client, his friend, drove him home, stopped on the way to pick up the blood pressure monitor, all the tools I told him he needed. And he started his fast with me the next morning. He completed a 30-day fast. My next call in 24 minutes is with a group of 6 people fasting with me right now, or refeeding with me here in North America. He's on that call. And the last 3 days in a row, his systolic pressure was in the 120s. The lowest so far has been 121. It was 254. We've eliminated almost all of the risk of heart attack or stroke. He's eliminated more than 10 liters of edema from his body. We can see that. We can measure that. Okay, so he's a different person. His next door neighbors fasted because of this, and he's told me there's other people that are saying they want to fast too because of what they've seen.
Wow, it's beautiful.
So I love what I do, but I work all the time. So I don't really have time to be paying much attention to what other people are saying and doing.
Yeah, which is great. Which is great. So me, I look in and out of different things, and so when someone says, so there's a couple of things that come up here. If someone else is on a relatively hydrated limit, I'm going to call it consumption, then they're going to be more hydrated. If they're more on fruit, someone might say, "Well, I just have fruits. I just keep doing fruits." That's going to resolve the issues. It's going to resolve, the hydration. Some people say just melon, or some people just said, I get all my liquids. I won't mention certain names. I get all my liquids from fruits. Another one might say from my coconuts. That's my liquid. That's the only water I've been drinking for 40 years, someone has said. So what have we got to say about them drinks?
Well, so again, I mean, I can tell you that 100% of the time so far, the people I've seen who don't drink water, who haven't fasted long enough to eliminate the giant sponge, those people are super dehydrated. And this is hard to imagine, but they're more dehydrated than the average person eating normally. How?
Right. Yeah.
Well, it's very simple. Let me explain why.
So the average, I do hear what you're saying. So on the average, the average is everyone's super dehydrated in terms of like an alkaline acidic chart. When I look back, I realized I was probably 98% acidic in terms of what I was putting in my body. So at the same time, I would have potentially been 98%, unhydrated. So, but certain people, if, for instance, could I then just get my water from coconut juice? The green coconut juices.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Yeah. So again, there's a limit to how much your kidneys can process, and I've played with the numbers hundreds of times. It's impossible to get enough water in at a rate that your kidneys can handle it to hydrate the body. I mean, again, look, you've got a giant sponge in your small intestine. Okay. Until you fasted long enough and properly, typically 2 or 3 times, you are not going to be able to get hydrated no matter what you do. You can't do it because this giant sponge is sitting there. There's a young woman here in Seattle. She worked with me remotely a couple of years ago. I only met her about a month ago when I got here. And since then, I've seen her several times because I've got a group of friends here that I met speaking at a festival 25 years ago in Portland, Oregon, just a couple hours away. And they're 4 of them are still here. I didn't know her before, but she's now, connected with those people. So there've been 3 events so far where I've spoken that they've organized. I've hung out with a couple of them at different times. We've twice now, again on Saturday, we're going for our 3rd weekly hike. The Pacific Northwest has beautiful wilderness areas. And so we'll go out into the forest somewhere and go hike for 5 or 6 miles. We hike to the top of a mountain one day. I mean, beautiful stuff. This woman fasted with me a couple of years ago. She was 28 years old. She was already eating optimally. Okay, optimally. She was quite dehydrated when she showed up, as is everybody who eats optimally and wasn't getting enough water and hadn't cleaned out the giant sponge. But here's the crazy thing. 5'7", 99.5 pounds, right? So for metric people, that's 172 and 45 kilos. Okay. Pretty lean for her height. She fasted with me for 30 days. And she had originally planned to do 42 days. She was actually at Tanglewood at the center in Costa Rica, which by the way, it's probably clear, you may know this already, doesn't exist anymore. It's closed. So I'm now working with people remotely. I'm working with people remotely only. But she was at the center 2 years ago. It closed last February. She was there, and she booked a 42-day fast, which is a 63-day process. The longer the fast, the longer the feeding. So instead of going 42, she decides to break at 30. Well, that's normally 12 days we're feeding, but she had 33 more days with us. Okay, extra 21 days. So I don't normally work with people every day for that long after a fast of that length. In those 33 days, she had 318 bowel movements. That's nearly 10 every day. And then we did our 6-week follow-up call. We do a check-in 6 weeks after the process is over. And she said, Loren, I'm still having 10 bowel movements a day.
Wow.
And then I didn't hear from her for a while. In November, so a year ago, this past November, like a year and 4 months, 5 months ago, she wrote to me and said, until the end of June, more than 6 months after I broke my fast, I was having an average of 10 bowel movements a day. And she said, I still have days where I'm eliminating 10 times a day. Wow. So I'm going to say something to Pete. I hope you'll forgive me. I consider you a brother. Okay. But but you are almost certainly, like everybody else I've ever met or worked with, you are full of shit. Everybody is. Okay, there's this old stuff stuck in the body. We've got to fast long enough and properly. Okay, it has to be long enough to give the body time to break it down and hydrate it. There's got to be enough water coming in to hydrate it. And then we have to break the fast properly to be able to move this stuff out of the body. When all those conditions are met, we get that stuff out of the body. And that's what she did. That's why she eliminated so many times. That's all right. You were gone for a while.
No, okay, I hear you. Yeah. I fully agree. I use the same term too. If I can't take that, absorb that, digest that. I mean, how much full of that I am, it's questionable. But yeah, if I haven't hydrated enough, what I've realised in terms of, I did a 120-day juice fast.
Yeah. So did I.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Now, I think with some of these protocols, I'm aware that is doing some good. But however, from traveling abroad and coming back, I actually mentioned on a podcast I've been invited on that it blurted out of my mouth, you cannot heal in England. Now, and I just done my 120-day juice fast. And potentially I still agree with that. It's so much more difficult Now, why do I say that? And even on 120 days, I was still 120 days in, I was still having bowel movements, you know. So I would imagine, I'm going to say, of course, some cleansing went on there. You know, I am an advocate of some of the Gerson therapy protocol of, you know, loading and moving out with enemas. I have done enema protocols. Not saying you have to. I'm just gonna, you know, we're talking to a person here who's from the age of 16. I know you had some amalgam. I had 18 amalgam mercury fillings in my mouth from the age of 16, and I had them for another 27 years of my life. And I was in a car industry, classic car restoration, for another 20 years. So I had heavy metals. So once again, if we sat down together going back, if I was a client of yours, as I would share with other people, you find out about their story. Now, I was heavily toxic, heavily toxic. That's why
Sure.
the 18 years ago, I had a massive wake up call. And that's why I really jumped in, potentially like yourself, but you found a different way at 23, a different protocol. So I jumped into many protocols and looked at so many different protocols. And this is why I invited you on as well, which is beautiful to invite you on and hear what you've got to say, because, you know, the name of this is called the Living Field. So you're part of the, you know, someone sharing your experience of really being in a living field, you know, living experience. So, so yeah, I took on quite a few different protocols, experimented, and the water one was an interesting one. I always had a belief that I would be getting it from my salads and my smoothies. And as I'm hearing here, I will agree with you. My journey from, we was so many months in Morocco, that was a massive, big step, you know, because we had more 50% sunshine, better fruits. And then we've been, let's just say, auspiciously ended up in Brazil. And I am so aware my body is healing, really,
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
fruits, from the sun. So when
There's
you're in
no
it, you
question
don't
about it.
know.
Yeah,
When
no,
you're in
I
it, you
agree with
don't
you
know.
completely. We're tropical animals. We need regular sunlight. And you know, if anyone here is listening from the UK, the sun is that big yellow thing you've probably seen in pictures somewhere. In case you don't actually see it in the UK very often. We need sunshine on a regular basis. We need fresh food, which you can't get in most places, you know, every day of the year. It's being shipped in thousands of miles to the UK. It's not going to be as fresh. It's not going to be as healthy for you. We need fresh air. Our skin should be breathing. You know, here I am wearing 2 layers because even inside the apartment in Seattle in March, it's not tropical, right? And so we want to be living, ideally we're living in a place. When I lived in Costa Rica 20 years, I was in shorts and flip-flops most of the time. If I'm giving a lecture talking to my clients, I'd have a shirt on out of respect for them, but otherwise, you know, my skin was breathing most of the time, most of my skin, right? We need all those
Good.
things to be as healthy as possible. Now I've worked with hundreds of clients from the UK, including many people who work with me remotely. You can heal in the UK to some degree. You can take your health to a much higher level. Can you be as healthy as possible outside of the tropics? I don't think so.
No.
I don't think it's possible.
You know,
I
to
feel the
thrive,
difference here.
it's really challenging, isn't it, in England to thrive? You know, once again, I realised I was in St. Lucia a couple of years ago. And there was a friend's dad, only a few years younger than me, and he'd come over from Canada, and he was on a healing protocol, and I was listening to his story, and it's amazing. You know, he'd moved from St. Lucia when he was 19 to Canada, but and I'm like, you're a martyr, and then he looked at me. Well, you are. And I'm like, well, why am I? He says, to do what you're doing in the UK, you know, here, he says it's easy, you know, so to sort of sustain it. And yes, I did do dehydrated. I'd make quiches, I'd make pieces. But, you know, as well as bridging for people, we were a bridge for people. The whole festival was a bridge for people, you know, knowing
Absolutely.
what was very conscious of what I was doing, you know, and I don't eat like that. Everyone thinks I eat like that. It's like, no, I don't eat like that. And yeah, I might have cakes in the fridge and things and bringing them out because they're for guests to, to share that you can just 3, 4 ingredients that you can have these beautiful foods, or how we emotionally associate them with old paradigm,
Yeah,
compromising foods. So,
right.
yeah, I mean, so it's been, for me, it's just such an epic journey, and
No doubt.
able to be open to hear people like you who have been
Yeah.
on a journey for a long time. I class myself, or what we do, would be classed as public enemy number one. And what you have brought up today, would be, you're more public enemy number one than me in a minute.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, I'm on the AMA sponsors a website called Quack Watch. I'm
Okay.
there. I'm there. They want people to believe that anything that's not conventional medicine is harmful to you,
Sure.
and
Sure.
and of course the truth is that medicine kills more people than anything, more than
I
cancer and
know.
heart disease.
Yes, this is it.
Absolutely.
And
So listen,
yeah,
we're going to have to wrap it up in a few
we
minutes because
are.
I've got to get to another
Yeah,
call,
yeah.
and
But
I'm sure we could probably talk for hours and
we have
hours.
to, we have to, we have to, do, we have to do another one as well. But
Yeah, be happy to.
so
We could
it's been.
maybe we could talk more about diet on another call.
Mm, yes.
But
And so,
what I wanted to share here was simply that um, everyone's got their own journey, as you said. You've had your journey. I've had my journey. Um, I know I get accused of being arrogant, think I know it all. Here's the thing: I've been coaching. So first of all, I started off. It's I told you about my original issues, what brought me to fasting and eventually to a raw vegan diet.
mhm,
What I didn't tell you was that I was in the commercial real estate business, and when I first started, I was the youngest officer of the second largest company in Washington D.C. I was doing very well. I wound up leaving to start my own small firm, and but what happened was the change in me after I started fasting. The change in me was so dramatic that people would come up to me if they knew me, they hadn't seen me for a while. They'd say, "Oh my God, you look amazing. What did you do?" And then, could you help me, or could you help my spouse, or could you help my kid? Could you help my parent? I have a friend that needs help. And so I began spending more and more time coaching other people because I think we all want to help, right? You
mhm,
obviously
yeah.
are out there in public service. I wanted to help people. And so I began doing that.
Mhm,
And that wasn't my original goal, but that's what I wanted to do. Well, so I've now
mm,
worked with more than 16,000 clients. I've guided more than 12,000 through long fasts. Most of the time, people who come to me to fast have already tried juices
mm,
and supplements and medication. They've tried everything else because this seems
yeah,
pretty radical. Going three or
yeah.
4 weeks without food seems radical to most people, and it's not to me anymore, but it did once. So they come. Usually, they come to me after they've tried everything else. I did. I also did 120 days on juices, and then I did a week on water, and I said, "Holy crap! I'm never drinking juices again." Now we can talk about juices. Again, I would say I don't believe juices are particularly good for you.
Mm,
Far inferior to whole foods, but for the average person starts drinking only juices for a week or a month or 2, 3 months. What happens? Well, they're going to be healthier than before because it's better than whatever they were doing before. We have to remember that everything's relative. Okay.
yeah.
So, there are listeners here that are going to say, yeah, well, he's wrong. I used herbs and it healed me, or I did this. Everything's relative. If you make
It is, yeah.
improvements, you're going to heal. But
Mm,
my clients have come to me having tried everything else, and it's always fasting long enough and properly
mm,
that allows them to shift. So I'm literally going to say to every single person listening, if you're coachable, if you're not coachable, I wish you the best and hope you have a wonderful life, but I don't want to work with you. If you can't
mm,
take coaching, you're
mhm.
not, it's not for me. It's not going to be a good
And-
fit.
yeah. And you got the credentials and got the experience to be able to say that, and the wisdom, I'm going to say. So it is true. People, would obviously try and debunk certain people who. I mean, you've got like I say again, you've got the testimonials, you've got the experience, and there's people who hang on and their attachments to this hill, that work, this work. So,
Exactly.
I'm staying open here. I mean, and to me, there's a vibration in truth, resonance in truth. So actually,
Right.
meeting you in the field 14 years ago, there was an energy exchange. I can still sense it here now. So I am personally coming away with so much more wisdom here from you.
Oh, good.
You know,
Good.
and I really do thank you for that.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm going to challenge everybody. If you're committed to creating the highest level of health, work with me for 4 weeks or more if you can. And by the way, it's not easy because you have to take the time off. You can't be working. It's about resting completely. It's an investment, no question. Work with me for 4 weeks or more. I will guarantee you in writing, you're going to take your health. And this is for everybody. I don't care what you've been doing,
Yeah,
how
yeah,
you've been eating, what you've already done. I guarantee you're going to take your health to a much higher level than you've experienced for 10 or 20 years,
yeah,
maybe ever for some people.
yeah,
Now, I'll share with you, if I may, Pete.
yeah.
We have, so what I've been doing all these years is 21, 26, 30, 42. I have a client who just did his fourth fast with me. It was 62 days. Okay. My longest client fast, by the way, was 138 days. A guy I met in London when I was speaking in London. This is a guy who was morbidly obese, had stage 4 testicular cancer, and 4.5 months later, and he had plenty of reserves to fast on because we're living on our fat reserves.
That's it.
4.5 months later, he broke his fast, and there was no trace of cancer. We've had many people heal from cancer. Okay, so, but for people who maybe they're listening and going, well, this sounds interesting, but it sounds crazy to do weeks without food. I have a new program. It's mostly education. It's 4 weeks long, and it includes 1 week of fasting. It's called the Fasting Reset, and we're about to run another group starting on the 18th of April. So if you're interested in that, maybe you can share. Well, I guess everyone's got my Instagram. You can reach out to me on Instagram if you're listening here. I think I saw you said you're going to be posting this on YouTube as well.
I will, and I will post this actual section. So do express it a little bit here, and we'll cut it and put it out there
Doing some reels, yeah.
As a story, do some reels, yes.
So maybe you can just make sure that they've got a way to contact me.
Definitely. And
okay.
So for just quickly, just for the people in England, then you coach. What in terms of water? Giving some people some tips. What do you suggest for them to drink?
Well, if you live in a place, I mean, if you can go get clean spring water, what I would do, you were talking about when you were skeptical about the spring. I don't blame you. What I would do if I had the opportunity to maybe have free water, right, clean water, I would pay to have it tested, and maybe every once in a while, again, get it tested to make sure it's still clean enough to drink. Obviously, if you're drinking, it tastes bad, or you start to feel bad, then I would immediately get it tested. But I would drink spring water. There are places. I've got a friend in Oregon. I'll be visiting him in a couple of months. He's got a spring nearby. We drink spring water over there only.
Yeah. And if someone was doing a 7-day fast or whatever, spring water. I mean, they were around Glastonbury area. Apparently, the water has been tested. Does get tested. There's some places that do get tested, so that would be recommended to make sure that.
And if you don't have access to clean spring water from the ground, what can you buy ideally in a glass bottle? That's going to be best. Next best would be, there are some filters that do a good job of removing chlorine and fluoride and other impurities. They do a pretty good job. Berkey, for instance, I'm told, is pretty good.
That machine, what's it called? Kangen. That's
well, if you're gonna use a Kangen machine, what you don't want to do is alter the pH, because alkaline water that's just nonsense. It's natural waters between pH 6 and 8. Making it higher doesn't do anything for you. Okay. In fact, what you can do is you can neutralize your stomach acid if you're drinking very alkaline water. It's not a good idea. It's not natural to us. Again, it comes back to, what would I do? What would I be doing? What would I be consuming if I lived in nature? You'd be drinking spring water around 7, between 6 and 8 normally. That's all you need. You don't need it to be more than that. So, Pete, I've got to run.
Yes.
Great to see you.
It's been amazing, and thank you so much for the information. And this is the Living Field, should I say. It's been beautiful having you on, sharing, some really interesting insight. Thank you ever so much.
My pleasure. If you want to set it up, you want to do it again sometime, let's make it happen.
I definitely would. I've still got lots of
right.
sharing to happen.
Take
Thank you
care,
ever so
Pete.
much.
Great to see you again.
And
Bye-bye.
thank you everyone for coming and sharing this room with us. Big love.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.